Hello guys, welcome to the Parson series, and this is the last part of your chapter number 6. So last time we were discussing about the hypermetropia. Now let's see the treatment of hypermetropia. Mostly the correcting lenses are given, and they say that we do not insist on treating the spectacles with the spectacles in young patients with low hypermetropia unless and until we have a tendency towards the convergent squint. So if a patient is young and having just a mild degree of hypermetropia, we can give no treatment as well. Now in elderly people, if you look at the elderly people, there it is a must because they have a problem in doing the near work. The ordinary presbyopic addition is appropriate for the needs and age of the patient, must be added for the hypermetropic correction. Now one important thing is that we take it as like that in myopia we have a problem in the distance vision, and in hypermetropia we have a problem in the near vision. That does not mean that the person who is having hypermetropia and wearing the hypermetropic spectacles for the correction will not have presbyopia and will not require. That person will also require the presbyopic correction. So that presbyopic correction must be added to the hypermetropic correction, but care should be taken that these cases are under corrected rather than over corrected. I told you before also that presbyopia should never be over corrected. Then the other options, we can use the contact lenses, then we can give the LASIK also, phakic IOLs. If you look at the LASIK, see LASIK is a very popular option as a refractive surgery we are doing, but that LASIK is for the mild to moderate hypermetropia and phakic IOLs for the higher degrees of hypermetropia. So when they give you a choice for mild to moderate, we have the this hyperopic LASIK, and for higher degrees we have got the phakic IOLs. Phakic IOLs are specially designed, they are foldable, they are convex thin lenses implanted in the posterior chamber behind the iris and in front of the normal crystalline lens. Now because these lenses are the phakic IOLs, where lens is already there, so you should be very specific where they are given. So they are actually given behind the iris and in front. So if this is your cornea and we have the iris here and here it is the lens, so where we are placing it? We are placing in the posterior chamber behind the iris and in front of the normal IOL. This is the normal position of the phakic IOL. Older patients with hyperopia who want greater spectacle independence and suitable candidates, they can go for the refractive lens exchange too. So this was about your spherical errors, that is myopia and hypermetropia. Now we come to the most important one, that is your astigmatism. So in this condition of refraction, the main thing is that a point of light cannot be made to produce a punctate image upon the retina. So the problem is that in cases of astigmatism, we have got uneven curvature, due to which the parallel rays of light which are coming from infinity, they do not come to a point focus. That is the main thing. So when they are not coming to a point focus, that means we have got different curvatures and they will be leading to the different paths in the different meridian. Now the varieties of regular astigmatism, we have already discussed in the previous chapter. Regular astigmatism is amenable to optical correction by the spectacle lenses. Now if I talk about the astigmatism, this can be regular astigmatism, this can be irregular astigmatism. The regular astigmatism is correctable by the spectacle lenses, but when it comes to irregular, there is a problem. So it is particularly liable to cause the marked asthenopia or the eye strain. Asthenopia in these cases is only part of it is accommodative. So not only there is a problem of blurring of vision, these people face lot of problem of asthenopia and eye strain, and a great majority of this eye strain is accommodative. It is often worse in the lower degrees of astigmatism than in the higher degrees, because endeavors to accommodate so as to produce a circle of least diffusion on the retina. So now again an important thing, see in cases of astigmatism, lower degrees are obviously causing more problem. There are two reasons for it. Number one is that in cases of lower degrees of astigmatism, they are trying to compensate, they are trying to reach to the level of diffusion by compensation and leading to the mixed astigmatism. The second thing is that in cases of lower degrees of astigmatism, we have got sufficient amount of vision which is actually causing the distortion. So patient is experiencing that he or she is having a distortion of the vision. But in cases of higher degrees of astigmatism, the power is so less that the patient can hardly see anything. So at that time, the vision problems are less. Aching of the eyes are there, headache are common symptoms, and the eyes become quickly fatigued with reading. Letters are described as running together. So this is again very important thing. Many a times they can use these terms in your question, letters are running together. So basically they are used for the astigmatism. Regular astigmatism is usually due to the differences in the curvature of cornea and the different meridians. Now why I am getting this astigmatism? Astigmatism means I have got different power in the different meridians. So if I am having different power in the different meridians, that means the curvature is different, because now you know the different causes also. So what are the important causes of the refractive errors? We were having axial length, we were having curvature, refractive index and all. Now when it comes to astigmatism, it is the curvature that is most important. When it comes to curvature, it can be corneal curvature, it can be lenticular curvature, and more important is the corneal curvature. So we have got difference in the corneal curvature in the different meridians, due to which we have got different in the power, right? It must be remembered that frequently it is not the cornea. Frequently it is not the cornea alone which is at fault. For corneal astigmatism may be increased or partially corrected by lenticular astigmatism. So it is usually thought that astigmatism means the corneal astigmatism, but nevertheless lenticular astigmatism also play an important part. Now this lenticular astigmatism can increase the corneal astigmatism, it can also partially compensate for the corneal astigmatism. Regular astigmatism may occur following a corneal wound due to trauma. There can be a corneal wound, there can be a corneal wound due to the surgery. Astigmatism due to this cause continues to alter for some weeks after the injury. Therefore, final spectacles should not be ordered for at least 6 weeks after the injury. Again, an important thing. Now, if the injury has occurred, you have done some repair for the perforation. So this could be asked as a question that after how much time you should basically offer, order for the spectacles. So not before 6 weeks, because you know the astigmatism will continue. There is fibrosis, there is a healing, and that will again alter the amount of astigmatism. So wait for about 6 weeks. Following the sutureless surgeries by the phacoemulsification, there can be some flattening of the cornea in the axis of the wound. Now, if I talk about the suture surgeries, like if I'm talking about ECC, SICS, so there we are giving the radial sutures. It is something like this, interrupted radial sutures we are giving. So that is actually altering the astigmatism and curvature of the cornea. Now what about the sutureless surgeries? So it is not like this, that if it is a sutureless surgery, it won't cause any change. It will cause change. So in cases of the sutureless surgeries also, we have some flattening of the cornea, and this will be occurring axis of the wound. What is this wound actually? They are talking about the incision. Higher degrees of astigmatism, which is causing a lowering of the visual acuity, this is least in the mixed astigmatism. This is again an important fact that the symptoms are usually least in cases of mixed astigmatism, probably because of the circle of least diffusion. So this you already know. Then talking about the irregular astigmatism. In the irregular astigmatism, where the principal meridians are not perpendicular to each other, they are occurring due to corneal scarring, or they can be due to surgery, due to the corneal ectasia like keratoconus. So these are the important causes of the irregular astigmatism. Irregular astigmatism may the two meridians are not even perpendicular to each other. In the regular astigmatism, they were perpendicular to each other. Either vertical curvature was more or the horizontal curvature was more, that is with the rule astigmatism against the rule astigmatism. Or in the third one, it was the oblique astigmatism, where the two were perpendicular but none of them was horizontal and vertical. The fourth one is your irregular astigmatism, where the two curvatures are not even perpendicular to each other. Now, if you look at the treatment, see if the astigmatic error is very small, less than 5 diopter, and it is not associated with the symptoms, spectacles are unnecessary unless the highest visual acuity is desired. So if I talk about the astigmatism, if it's very less and the patient is not having much symptoms, then don't give the spectacles, okay. But in all cases in which the astigmatism is causing the asthenopic symptoms, full optical correction should be ordered, and that is also for constant use. So again, if you are getting a question where the patient is having the asthenopic symptoms due to the astigmatism, what is the advice that you are going to give? Use the lenses, and that too all the time. That is for both distant as well as near vision. Other measures what you can use for the astigmatism: rigid contact lenses, we have toric contact lenses, we have got LASIK and arcuate keratotomy and the toric phakic IOLs. In the refractive surgeries, we have talked about all of these procedures, and again I will say that if you have not gone through that video, please go through that video too. Now we come to the aphakia. Aphakia is not a refractive error. Aphakia in itself is not a refractive error, but indirectly it is creating a one. Aphakia is a refractive state which is induced by the crystalline lens being removed. So if you are removing the crystalline lens, that is creating a high degree of hypermetropia. In that sense, it is creating a refractive error, but in itself it is not a refractive error. If the eye earlier was emetrope, or it had only a low grade of emetropia, before the removal of the lens, it becomes extremely hypermetropic and all the accommodation is lost. So well, you know, this is included in the optics of the eye. After removing the lens, you are reducing the power of the lens, so eye will become hypermetropic. There will be total loss of accommodation also, and the hypermetropia is estimated by the correcting lens required. It is about 10 to 11 diopters if the eyes were previously emetropic. And usually what comes out, if you are treating a case of aphakia and earlier the patient was emetropic, then usually power that comes out for the PCIOL is 10 to 11 diopters, right? Now if you go ahead, the optical condition of the aphakic eye is very simple. It consists of a curved surface cornea separating the two media. Now you have got curved surface cornea, and cornea is lying between two things which are having the different refractive index. That is, one is air, on other side we have got the aqueous humor, right? Knowing the radius of curvature is 8 mm, the refractive index air is 1, that you know, aqueous humor is 1.33. It is very easy to calculate the focal distances. So the focal distances which comes out is, your anterior is 23, posterior is 31, as compared to 15 and 24 respectively for the normal eye. So there is a whole lot of difference between the anterior focal point and the posterior focal point in the aphakia. If the aphakic eye was 31 mm long, so if I consider the aphakic eye that is 31 mm long, parallel rays of cornea would be brought to a focus and no correcting glass will be required for the distance vision. So in that case, the axial myopia of a phakic eye, which is 31 mm long, that comes to about minus 21 diopters. So now what is happening, if I consider that you are treating it with the help of the spectacles. Aphakia is a hypermetropia. Hypermetropia may, suppose I am giving the convex lenses. So what is happening, convex lenses I will give. So when I am giving these convex ones, these are actually the plus. So they will cause increase in the size of the image. They are causing increase in the size of the image, and this increase in the size of image is about 25% larger. It is about 25% larger, and it is said that for every diopter there is a 2% increase, larger than the emetropic eye. So the vision of 6/6 with the correcting lens after extraction is not quite as good as it seems. So it looks like that when the person is having aphakia, you give the PCIOL and everything is sorted, but actually it is not, because when you are giving the PCIOL, the size of the image that you are expecting is much more. So if I am giving, suppose 10 or 11 diopter, so this will be multiplied by 2%. So 20 to 22% image magnification is there, and other eye is normal. So that will obviously create a difference in the refractive power of both eyes. Owing to the disparity of images, now any attempt to correct this unilateral aphakia with the spectacles when there is a good vision in the other eye will lead to the intolerable diplopia. Now I'll tell you how. Suppose one eye you are having the normal vision and the other eye is aphakia. So if x is the size of the image here, here it will be 22 to 22x. So that much change is there. So obviously now they will lead to the dissimilar images. These will create the dissimilar images, and we know that dissimilar images there will be no fusion, and this person will suffer from whole lot of diplopia. This person will suffer from whole lot of diplopia, and that is why this becomes intolerable. With the contact lenses, now another option is that we can use a contact lenses. In the contact lenses, the amount of magnification that we are having is not that much. So there the comfortable binocular vision may be attained. That is why by far the best method is the intraocular lenses for the optical correction of aphakia. So for the optical correction of the aphakia, what is the treatment of choice? Do you remember? PCIOL is the treatment of choice because here the amount of magnification, if you look at the PCIOLs, the amount of magnification is just 1 to 2%, and that is why we do not have a problem of diplopia, and that is why they are considered to be the treatment of choice for the aphakia. In addition to the hypermetropia, there is always some astigmatism in those cases where the corneal or corneoscleral section has been made. Now, one thing you always remember is hypermetropia in cases of aphakia, but also remember the cause. So, most of the cases it is cataract surgery. So, cataract surgery means the limbal incision, and due to the limbal incision, some amount of astigmatism will always be there. If the sutureless is there, then phacoemulsification incision in the upper part of the cornea. So, in cases of the phacoemulsification, the astigmatism is against the rule because the cornea is flattened in the vertical plane. In cases of phacoemulsification, one incision you are giving here at 12 o'clock, and then we have got the side port. So, this is causing your against the rule astigmatism. The astigmatism usually is 0.5 to 1 diopter. If an extracapsular cataract surgery ECC is there, along with the sutures, then it is with the rule astigmatism and much higher degree of astigmatism, that is 1 to 3 diopters. Why? This is your phacoemulsification. While if I talk about the ECC, there you are giving the radial sutures, something like this, and interrupted sutures. So here what is happening? The vertical curvature is more steepened. So in cases of ECC, that is why you are getting the with the rule astigmatism. In cases of phacoemulsification, we were getting against the rule astigmatism. Then look at the amount also. In cases of phacoemulsification, the amount was 0.5 to 1 diopter. In cases of ECC, the amount of astigmatism is 1 to 3 diopters. Slowly and gradually it diminishes after the suture removal, but still some part can be remaining. Now coming to the treatment. So whenever you want to treat, you have to first calculate the exact amount. So we determine it by retinoscopy or the autorefraction or the subjective test. We can also use the keratometer because keratometer will help in determining the corneal curvature. Corneal curvature will help you in determining the astigmatism. So if you consider the optical condition of the aphakia with a strong correcting spectacle lens and with no accommodation, it is difficult, and often you have to be working with a lot of patients because whenever you are treating it, you have some problem. Like there can be some problem in one, there can be other problem in other, but the problems are there whenever you are giving the treatment for aphakia. Sometimes these difficulties can be improved by the contact lenses, but the problem with the contact lenses is again of tolerance. Not everybody can tolerate the contact lenses. Now the difficulties of aphakia and its correction by spectacles. One of the important thing is when you are treating the aphakia with the spectacles, because nowadays we are hardly treating the aphakia with spectacles. So what was the problem? Because there were a lot of problems. One important thing is that aphakia is a condition of high hypermetropia. So if I am having high hypermetropia, I will give the plus lenses, and in plus lenses we were having the image magnification. This image magnification is by 25 to 30%. Then second important thing is the spherical aberrations. In the spherical aberrations we can have the pincushion effect, especially when the person is seeing in the periphery of the thick convex lenses. So we have got the prismatic effect. That is called as the prismatic effect that is there. Then another important thing is that there will be lack of coordination, because there is a limited field in cases of spectacles. Only anteriorly you have those specs, you do not have from sides and from above and below, so there is a loss of this coordination. Then if you look at the periphery of these thick convex lenses, whenever we are looking obliquely through it, what is happening, we have got a lot of aberrations. So one important aberration is your jack in the box phenomena. This jack in the box phenomena is due to a scotoma. See, what happens when you treat the aphakia patient with the spectacles, there is a very small scotoma which is occurring. This scotoma is very small, 15-degree scotoma. So whenever the person is looking towards the scotoma, scotoma moves to the other side and it is moving in this ring. So moving of the scotoma in a ring shape fashion, this is actually called as the roving ring scotoma. This is actually called as the roving ring scotoma, and because you know the scotoma is appearing, then it is disappearing, it is appearing and then disappearing. So this has been simulated with the jack in the box phenomena. That is why it is called as jack in the box phenomena. Then you can have other prismatic errors due to the displaced optical centers. The optical centers of these lenses will be obviously different. We have got a reduction of the visual fields. We have a poor eccentric activity. If the thing is coming from the center, we are able to do. If they are coming from the periphery, we are not able to do. Then there can be a possibility of inaccurate correction. You are not able to correct it properly. Every correction is not done just to the finest of level in the spectacles, because we have got lot of difference in the vertex distances, and obviously what to say of cosmesis, that is always there. I think the biggest barrier is that nobody wants to wear the spectacles. Now in order to attempt to overcome these difficulties, what we can do, aphakic spectacles may be used in various forms like spherical, lenticular, full field. Then we also have the aspheric lenses. Now what do you mean by this aspheric lenses? Aspheric lenses may the front lens surface. The front lens surface has a progressive peripheral flattening starting 12 mm from the center with the power ground on the posterior surface. So one is the aspheric, so anterior surface is not spherical there, that is being flattened. And then we can use the smaller lenticular lenses. These are 40 mm diameter, and what is happening with these lenticular lenses, they have got a bullseye effect. Bullseye effect means a circular kind of a thing with the 3.5 diopter rear curve. Moderate amount of asphericity, 1.5 diopter power drop, because asphericity means that you are decreasing the curvature, and when I will decrease the curvature, there is a flattening, so obviously there will be decrease in the power also. Peripheral field will be smaller, and but the good thing is that the scotoma is also reduced. So we have a more smaller central scotoma. So lesser distortion. Now there are good things also. So there will be lesser distortion, greater magnification and better eccentric activity. So because you know there is lesser distortion and we have got good magnification, this property makes it very suitable for the first aphakic lens. Then we have got another lenses. These lenses are called as the full field lenses. Full field lenses. Now aspheric lenses were having the anterior one flatter. This is having the flat rear curve, and this one has even more of asphericity, 2 to 5 diopter power drop. But usually they have a larger diameter, larger peripheral field, more peripheral scotomas. So you know quality comes with the price. So they have more distortion, less central magnification and poor eccentric activity. So if you see here, they are entirely opposite. While if you see here, they were saying that these were having you know less distortion, greater magnification and better eccentric activity. But if you are using the full field lenses, everything is opposite here. They are having the more distortion, less of the magnification and poor eccentric activity. These full field lenses have increased fold, more secure mobility and improvement in the eye-hand coordination. But On the other hand, the coordination level is very good here. The spatial orientation is better. So you will have to choose, like you cannot take best of everything. You will have to choose and look for your priorities. General problems, if you look in the use of contact lenses in aphakic persons, we have got lack of dexterity in the older patients and intolerance owing to a foreign body. Now in the younger people, we can give the contact lenses, but you know, contact lens tolerance is always a problem, especially in the elderly people who have always feel like a foreign body sensation due to the contact lenses. The best optical correction for aphakia. So now they have come up to PC-IOL. So the best optical correction for the aphakia is actually the implantation of the IOL, and that you can do as a primary procedure. Primary means when the cataract surgery is going on, that time only you can do it. But the secondary IOL implantation at a later date is also possible. So nowadays we do not even discuss the secondary IOL implantation, because almost everyone is given the PC-IOL at the same time as the primary procedure only, and it has got lot of advantages. The aftercare of the patient is very minimal. Then second thing, the anisoconia. Anisoconia means the difference in the image size is very less. As I told you that the PC-IOLs are causing just 1 to 2% of the image magnification. Binocularity you can easily attain. Peripheral vision is very good. So as good as the original one, you can say. So this was about your aphakia. Now coming to the anisometropia. Anisometropia. And now try to understand what is anisometropia. You know iso means same, aniso means not same, and metropia means the power. So when I have not the same power in both the eyes. So if I am having the different refractive power in both the eyes, then that condition is called as the anisometropia. This is the condition in which the refractive status of the two eyes shows a considerable difference. A slight difference is common, but they are talking, when I am talking about anisometropia, I am not talking about 0.5 or 1 diopter. I am talking about high degrees of difference of the refractive errors. The condition may cause asthenopic symptoms. In the lower grades, there is usually a binocular vision, although it is imperfect, and the effort of fusion may produce the symptoms of eye strain. In the higher grades, that is more than 2.5 diopter, this is impossible and the vision becomes uniocular. Now what do you mean to say? That means up till the anisometropia is up to, when it is up to 2.5 diopter, okay, then there is no diplopia. You do not have diplopia till 2.5 diopter, and you know already why, because 1 diopter is producing 2% anisoconia. We know that 1 diopter produces 2% anisoconia, difference in the image size. So 2.5 diopters. What about 2.5 diopters? This will cause 5%, and that is best tolerated. If it is more than 2.5 diopter causing more than 5% change, there will be no fusion, because now I will take them as a dissimilar images. So this is again the same thing that you already know, that the best tolerated anisometropia is 2.5 diopters and the best tolerated anisoconia is 5%. Alright, now coming to the treatment part. First important thing is, it is important to treat anisometropia, because otherwise there will be a preference. The person will use the better eye, the other eye will slowly and gradually will go into amblyopia, that is lazy eye, and therefore there will be a tendency towards the squint. The correction of anisometropia is difficult. We have to give that correcting lenses have to be placed in the anterior focal point of the eye. So though it is possible, but it is difficult, and in practice the lenses are nearer to the eyes, so that with concave lenses the retinal image is diminished. With the convex, the image is enlarged. Now another problem is that if you are giving the contact lenses, what is happening? If you are giving the concave, the image size will decrease. If you are giving the convex lenses, then image size will enlarge. So again, you cannot have the proper prediction that how much image will decrease or increase. Then if I am talking about the higher degrees, so in cases of anisometropia, if it is more than 2.5 diopters, there will be whole lot of anisoconia. So you should know these terms. Anisometropia means difference in the refractive power, anisoconia means difference in the size. So if I am having very high degree of anisometropia, which is more than 2.5 diopters, there will be considerable change or the difference in the size of the image also. And when you have a lot of change in the size of the image, there will be it will become impossible for the retina to fuse both the images, and therefore there will be diverse images. Moreover, on looking obliquely through the lenses, you will have prismatic effect and distortion are different in the two eyes, enhancing the discomfort. Now in these cases, the problems are manifold. If I am having a difference of the refractive error in the two eyes, I am having a lot of difference in the image size of the two eyes. Now if I am treating it with the spectacles, what is happening? One diopter will cause a image size difference by 2%. Now suppose person is having more than 2.5, suppose 5 diopters. So this will create a problem of 10%, and you know 10% will cause lot of problem. There will be no fusion, the person will have diplopia, plus you will have thick prismatic lenses, mostly it is aphakia. Now if you are having aphakia, you will give the convex lenses, so there will be lot of prismatic effect, and you have already seen that when we have a prismatic effect, there is a lot of problem of the distortion of images. Okay. The use of ordinary spectacle lenses thus presents a difficulties, and if a full correction cannot be tolerated, then you have to be to give the undercorrection. Many a times, if you do not have the option of PCIOL and you have to give the spectacles only in aphakia, then most of the time we cannot correct it fully. You have to give some sort of undercorrection. Then second option is that you can also give the contact lenses. Contact lenses will diminish these optical effects. They can be given, or but the thing is that the tolerance, whether the patient is able to tolerate them or not. Then if I talk about the uniocular vision, the uniocular vision or the monocular vision may be distorted too, with one or being the eye being used at a time, a habit which grows more comfortable with the practice is seen in the use of uniocular microscope. Second thing is that if you are not doing it, then what happens? One of the eye becomes a preferred eye. So again, preferred eye means other eye will go into amblyopia. So risk of amblyopia becomes very, very high in these patients. It is particularly fortunate that when one eye is nearly emmetropic and other myopic, because the former can be used for the distance and the latter for the near without the aid of the spectacles. So sometimes, you know, in myopia, chances of amblyopia are not as high as in hypermetropia, because suppose one eye is normal. So what is happening? You can use the emmetropic eye for the distance, because myopic eye is not able to see at the distance, and you can use this myopic eye. Myopic eye will be used for the near vision. So at that time, though there is a preference, but for the particular visions, that is why the eye, none of the eye will go into amblyopia, because you have got one eye for one type of vision and one eye for the other type of vision. Now we come to the anomalies of accommodation. In this condition, what is happening? The accommodative power is below the lower limit of what might be accepted as normal for the patient's age. So anomalies of accommodation, or we can say presbyopia, because at large, most important and most common anomaly of the accommodation is presbyopia. Okay, now what is happening? It is a physiological failure of the accommodation, and you know, accommodation is mainly done by the lens with the help of ciliary muscle, so it can be due to the hardening of the lens. Now this can be due to the weakness of the ciliary muscle. Weakness of the ciliary muscle means it can be a part of the general muscular fatigue, like the general debility, chronic muscular debility, or it can be anemia, toxemia, or if you are using the eyes excessively, particularly for the close work, not using proper illumination, not taking the proper distance between the two. And we can also have a rapid failure of accommodation. Rapid failure of accommodation, where did you read this? This can be glaucoma, where we have frequent change of the presbyopic glasses or the near glasses. So we can think about the premature presbyopia also, we can think about the muscular fatigue also, anemia, toxemia, or the glaucoma, where there was a impairment of the effectivity of the muscle, because that has gone by the increase in intraocular pressure. Now, what will be the symptoms? So, there is a defect in the accommodation. So, person is not able to do that near work properly. So, obviously, there will be a eye strain. Person will feel difficulty in doing the near work. The treatment should be directed essentially to the causal condition. But if the close work is difficult, reading spectacles may be prescribed. Whenever you are treating anything, we have to see two things. One is the causative treatment, one is the symptomatic treatment. So obviously look for the cause, try to treat the cause, but meanwhile you have to give the symptomatic treatment also and prescribe some reading glasses or the presbyopic glasses. Okay, in general, the weakest convex lenses which will allow the adequate vision should be ordered so that accommodation may continue and remain stimulated. Now this is again very important, and again the same thing, presbyopia should never be overcorrected, and the weakest convex lenses by which the patient is able to manage the near work should be given. Now another thing is your paralysis of accommodation. Paralysis of accommodation is cycloplegia. This occurs in disease as well as the direct action of cycloplegic drugs. So obviously one common etiology that comes to the mind of the cycloplegia is if you are using the cycloplegic drugs, but nevertheless some of the diseases can also cause the paralysis of ciliary muscle, like we can have the drugs, we can have contusions. Now one important thing is the Aedes tonic people. Aedes tonic people mein where we were having the viral ganglionitis, we were having the lesions of the ciliary ganglions. So there also the ciliary muscle paralysis is there, and it's very common in the third nerve palsy, you know. Do you remember the pupillary reflex pathway? So it was starting from the retina, then it is going to the optic nerve, then it is going to the optic tract. Now from the optic tract, it is not going to the lateral geniculate body, rather it is going to the pretectal nucleus, and from this pretectal nucleus it is going to the EW nucleus of both the sides. From EW nucleus, you know, this is the nucleus of the third nerve. So this is going to the third nerve, and from third nerve it is going to the ciliary ganglion. That is why if there is a third nerve palsy, then also it can lead to the paralysis of ciliary muscle. Another important thing is the diphtheria. Now here where you can have an integrated kind of question with the pediatrics, in cases of diphtheria, there is a paralysis of accommodation which is following the primary attack after an interval of several weeks. Then you also have the paralysis of palate, you also have loss of knee jerk. So see, whole of the question, your integrated question is ready. Patient, they can give a child having an attack of diphtheria, they can give you a history of or some symptom related to the paralysis of the palate, absence of the knee jerk, so throat may be there, membrane can be there, and you can get the paralysis of accommodation. In the complete paralysis, so if there is a complete paralysis, the sphincteric pupillary is also generally paralyzed and the pupil is widely dilated. Very important. In cases of the diphtheria, if I have got complete paralysis, then even I will have the involvement of muscle also. So there will be complete dilatation of the pupil. In paresis, the pupil may be mildly affected, and paresis, that is the main difference between paresis and paralysis. Paresis means partial, while paralysis means it is the total. I'll write it here for you. Paresis, okay, and paralysis, right? Paresis means we have partial, and paralysis means we have got total, right? So be very clear about these terms. Okay, then in fact in this disease, the reverse of Argyll-Robertson pupil, reverse may be there. Now another important thing, in cases of diphtheria, you can get reverse Argyll-Robertson pupil. So they can ask you a question that the reverse AR pupil is found in. So the exam answer will be your diphtheria. Here you are getting the loss of reaction to the accommodation with the retained reaction to light. So again forms an important question, the reverse AR pupil. The symptoms depend upon the condition. So if the patient is myopic, the defect is unnoticed. But yes, if the patient is hypermetropic and you have got a loss of accommodation reflex also, obviously this will be near vision will be affected, and therefore if the patient is having hypermetropia, both of the vision will be affected. So this will become a great problem. So I can say that in diphtheria the vision is not a problem in cases of myopes, but obviously if the patient is hypermetrop, there is a problem, particularly in the hypermetropia. Now in paresis it may be possible to diagnose the condition only by measuring the range of accommodation. Prognosis is good, and in traumatic cases it becomes permanent because you do not have any cure of the trauma. Treatment is basically according to the cause. Whenever the condition is bilateral, you can give the convex lenses, and sometimes we are using the miotics also, but again this is individualized. You cannot say that one treatment for all that can be given. Then another important thing is the spasm of accommodation. These are the terms that you should know when they are giving a question related to the accommodation. These are the different options they are giving in your question. Spasm of accommodation, this can be produced artificially by the installation of miotics. And if you remember, previously we used to use the miotics in the open angle glaucoma, but now we are not using them because there is a fear of this accommodative spasm. In spontaneous spasm of accommodation, there is nearly always some error of refraction, and eyes are usually being subjected to too much of near work in the unfavorable condition. So whenever we are getting spasm of accommodation, there is some refractive error which is getting unnoticed and uncorrected, and the person keep on working in the unfavorable circumstances, like it can be bad illumination, bad posture, mental stress and anxiety, and suddenly therefore there will be spasm of accommodation. So whenever you have spasm of accommodation, do the proper refraction, especially under dilatation and cycloplegia. Treatment consists of the correction of refractive error, and if it's still necessary, use of cycloplegics for several weeks can be given, because you have to give relief to the ciliary muscle which you have overused, some kind of reassurance, psychotherapy, because the person really becomes agitated at that time. Then the correction of errors of refraction. So how will you correct the refraction? So these are the simple steps that they have tried to given. The first thing is you have to measure the visual acuity. Then you have to do the external examination. External examination you have to do, we have already discussed the external examination. You have to look for the motility. You have to look for the motility. So I have written this point. So what are the various steps? You have to check the visual acuity, you have to do the external examination, you have to look for the motility also. This is the order of the preference, how will you go. Then in the squint you have to do everything, like you have to see whether it is latent, whether it is manifest. Then you have to go whether it is latent or whether it is manifest, and then you have to do that trial and error method. Trial frame you can give, and then you go for the specific retinoscopy. Once you have done the retinoscopy, what you are going to do, we have to do the refinement. Refinement depends whether it is a spherical correction or a cylindrical correction. For the spherical correction we are using the Duchrome test. For the cylindrical correction we are using the Jackson cross cylinders. And then you also have to check for the near point of accommodation and convergence. If the near vision is also affected, the near addition has to be done, and then finally you have to give the final correction. So this is the sequence in which you have to give this correction, right? Now something about the spectacles, sunglasses and contact lenses, because you are giving the optical correction in these forms. You can give spectacles, you can give contact lenses, you can give the refractive surgeries. We have also talked about the aspheric lenses that are flattening away from the center. They have got reducing the prismatic effects. We have got lesser distortion also, greater magnification is also there, highest power density is there. Correction of high refractive errors will require very thick lenses, and if I am using very thick lenses, then there will be poor peripheral vision. And then we can also use the high index lenses. High index lenses may we have got glass lenses, we have got plastic ones, higher refractive index, and lenses are thinner, flatter and lighter. So you have got different variety of lenses, and we have got pros and cons of every kind of lens. So depending upon the patient's preference also we can use them. Talking about the presbyopic patients, if the patient is having presbyopia, we can use the bifocals also, we can use multifocals or progressive lenses. Bifocals means, bi means two. If I am having just two powers in the same lenses, one is the distance, one is the near, then sometimes what happens, the patient wants to have an intermediate vision also. So apart from the near and the distance, we are also using that intermediate vision, that is called as the multifocal. Then we can also have progressive. Progressive means you do not have definite seam, you have got progression of the power, and then you have got the variable focal lenses. Progressive addition lenses provide a smooth transition from distance through intermediate, and it is giving you a smooth transition from the distance to the near, and you are not having any definite seam there. Contact lenses are thin optical corrective lenses worn on the eye, resting on the surface of cornea. So this, you know, I have shared a whole lot of a video on the contact lenses. If you have not seen it, you can go through that contact lens video. We had a detailed discussion on that. Then we have got the spectacles and the sunglasses. Optical correction for refractive errors. These are actually fitted in a frame, and that is your spectacles. Now there are so many things about the spectacle frames also. They should be light, easy to carry, they should not cause any irritation, they should not cause pain, they should be comfortable. And the important thing is, the optically important thing is that the optical center should coincide with the visual axis and not merely at the geometrical center of the frame. Because if you have just made it in such a way that it is coinciding with the geometrical center of the frame, and it is not coinciding with the patient's visual axis, you will have a lot of prismatic effects, and you have already seen that the prismatic effects are causing so many problems. For the near vision, like if the patient is having problem of near vision, we can decenter slightly inwards and tilting. So we are making an angle of 15 degree there. They then approximate the visual axis when the eyes are directed downwards. Now why we are doing this? Because at the time of reading we are looking downwards, so we are actually inclining there. That is why we already incline them at 15 degree. In children, spectacles are large, round or oval lenses, otherwise children may look over them. In cases of children, always try to make them larger, otherwise the children will be looking above and not from that area which is required. For children, we are using tough plastic lenses, spring hinges, because we have to give them, taking into consideration that wear and tear could be there. As far as the lens materials are concerned, the spectacle lenses, they are mainly made up of plastic or glasses. Glass lens comes in a variety of refractive index, and we are using them in such a way that they will have minimum thickness, because more the thickness, more is the prismatic effects, right? Lenses are made up of crown glasses. So there the refractive index is 1.52. If I talk about the glass lens, they are quite good. They offer the visual clarity, do not scratch easily. But if I am using the plastic lenses, they are often CR39. They are half the weight of glass, do not shatter, but they can easily get scratched or wrapped. So nothing is foolproof. We have always the options. We can go with the glass, we can go with the plastic. Plastic one are lightweighted, but there's a problem of scratching. Glasses do not scratch. So again, depend upon whether you are prescribing it to adult or a child, and the individual preference also. Then we have what you call as the polycarbonate lenses. They are very, very light and thin, high refractive index, scratch resistant, unbreakable. They offer total ultraviolet protection also. 10 times stronger. It is 10 times stronger than the plastic, ideal for the children as well as those participating in the sports activity. So nowadays we have got a very good option. These are your polycarbonate lenses. So one stop solution where you are having goods of both glasses as well as the plastics. All these lenses can be tinted, coated or photochromatic. What do you mean by tinting? These tints prevent the damaging ultraviolet rays from entering the eye. Also, they reduce the amount of light which is entering the eye. So whenever you are giving these spectacles, you can always give them the tinted one, so that we can interfere with the ultraviolet radiations. Then we also have the anti-reflection coating that improves the patient clarity of the vision. Nowadays everybody is after the anti-reflection, because that reflection is always hampering the amount of visual acuity, the quality of the visual acuity, like that. Photochromatic lenses are very popular. They provide maximum comfort in ametropia by darkening and lightening according to the lighting conditions. So in photochromatic lenses, I think you must be knowing, they look white in the dark conditions, and when we have got the sunlight, they become tinted. So they are altering themselves according to the light conditions. These lenses that darken sunlight, when there is a short wavelength, 300 to 400, they interact with the chemicals incorporated in the glass lenses by the conversion of silver ions into elemental silver. So what is happening? And these are the lenses that darken in the sunlight. Why? Because they are getting this short wavelength radiations, and these are short wavelengths which are combining with the chemicals which are there in the glass lenses, and these chemicals are converting the silver ions into the elemental ion. On continued exposure, they progressively darken to absorb 80% of the short wavelength line. So as the person will remain in the light, then more and more radiations will be absorbed. 80% of them are actually absorbed. The reaction is reversible, so that when the illumination decreases, again the lenses will lighten, because if it will remain tinted in the dark conditions also, obviously the patient will not be able to see them. Okay, then photochromatic lenses can also be made of plastic, in which they are coated with organic molecule. So it's not that it is available only in glasses, even they can also be available with the plastics also. Okay, they offer protection from the harmful ultraviolet rays, especially useful against the harsh glare, fluorescent lights, video display screens. Wherever we have got a lot of bright light, we have got fluorescent lights which are creating trouble for us. So there we can use these photochromatic lenses. Patients with high refractive errors require very thick lenses of crown glass. If you have got a very high refractive error, there we will always prefer the glass lenses, and that is your crown glass, which is having poor peripheral vision and cosmesis. So the eyes look frog kind of eyes. It does not look very good, but that is a good solution for the high refractive errors. Then we have got the high index lenses. So these high index lenses which are available in glass or plastic, they have a refractive index of 1.56 to 1.67. So these are high in comparison to the 1.52, that is for the crown glass. But nevertheless, when one has a high refractive error, we have to use it. The lenses are therefore thinner, flatter, and lighter. Now if I talk about the aspheric lenses, they are, I told you they were having flatter ones, and therefore they have the highest power density among the lenses of equivalent focal length. So these spherical lenses have the advantage that they have got a very high power density. They are specially designed for the long sighted people who need thick lenses. They are thinner, flatter, and make the eyes look more natural. So those people who have the farsightedness, I think these aspheric lenses are a very good option for them. So I think we had a good conversation today about the very important aphakia, accommodation, what are the properties, what are the optics of aphakia, what are the different treatment options, and what is the comparison between the two, because I think there is always a lot of confusion what type of glasses. Even today I get a lot of messages from my students that what kind of lenses we should take, glass ones or plastic ones. We have got polycarbonates, one is scratch resistant, someone is having high index, and so on. So these things are good for your academic knowledge as well as your practical experience. You should be careful while choosing your glasses, and of course they will help you in solving the questions related to the different kind of glasses that can come in your exam. So next time we will be completing the chapter number 6, and we'll be starting the next one. Please complete your backlog. If you have not started reading the Parsons, please start, and if you have started reading, please complete your backlog, so that when we meet with the next chapter, you are actually reading with me and do not have any backlog. Thank you, and happy ophthalmology.